This is a surprising little car.
Yeah, it is.
I think we're continually surprised by this one. This is a 2001 BMW Z3 that was bought this week ahead of this shoot. The new owner put new tires on it, and here it is.
You're watching Everyday Driver. We make a TV show, podcast,
and YouTube channels helping you find a car you'll love.
This is our second cheap car challenge, and with the help of Auto Tempest, we're doing a year of adventures in $7,500 sports cars.
Subscribe so you don't miss a thing.
This is a car we drove very early in the show for Everyday Driver. We were starting out thinking there's always going to be sports cars available, but that might not be the case. And so here's a bunch of cars at least 20 years old, and we're wanting to know, how do dynamics stand up after all those years? Because this is Miata thinking.
It is.
This is BMW does Miata thinking, and here we are back in the German thing. You know, I know we both have German cars
currently
for our current cheap sports cars, but here we are getting into cheap sports cars, and we just got out of the Solstice. Both of these cars are 2,900 pounds.
Isn't that interesting?
They
both
feel
weigh the same.
Completely different.
Completely.
It's astounding to me.
I didn't expect this $4,800 car, talk about being under the price cap.
No kidding.
I didn't expect it to feel this good. The new tires have helped. This needs a little bit of work. The control arms are a little worn out.
Yeah,
the gauges, except for the speedo, don't work. The odometer just says error. The trip computer works. I have no idea my RPM or my fuel or my temperature. Those can all be fixed. But the money that we put back into this to make it from where it is now, where you kind of go, I wonder, to genuinely good, I still don't think that breaks $8,000.
Well, that's just it, because this entire challenge is about the German car. Should you buy a cheap German maintained car? Should you throw your money away? Is that what you're doing? Well, you could. This car could be eligible to just scrap it. I mean, it still runs, but to get it to a place where you want it to be nice, you could put some money into the interior, things need to be fixed. But mechanically, clearly, prior owners have maintained this car, and so it still feels solid. It does still run. And therefore, I think it justifies the fact that you should just try it. Find one that's been well maintained and keep maintaining the car. It's an investment in the driving community. It's an investment to keep these fun cars alive.
It also taps right back into that main question we keep tackling here, and that is the whole reason we did this cheap sports car challenge, and the reason that we're putting this group together is all of the people that look at us and write us and ask us and say, I want a sports car, but they're just so expensive.
Yep.
$4,800, you can get them for less than $8,000. I mean, I'm not saying that's no money. I'm not saying it's $500, but if you're really looking for a fun, cheap sports car, to get into this, as cheap as it is, as cautious as we were about it, knowing we needed a Z3 for this shoot, and then to get in and be like, you know what? This actually feels really fun. I'm having fun at a level well beyond even $8,000, and $4,800 was spent.
So the percentage just went up.
Absolutely.
From here, it's no longer 82%. We're at a little bit better ratio even.
But this just proves the fact that you can go get something cheap, and it's not just Miatas. This absolutely proves that point.
The Germans tackle the Miata thinking years after the Miata comes out, and we get this.
And then when they did the Z4, the one that I bought, it looks like they were very much looking at the Boxster. This weighs almost exactly the same as my Z4. The Z4 is like 100 pounds heavier, but it seems like a much bigger car than this.
Totally.
You know, that Z4, I've mentioned at least once that there's no steering feel. This has some.
It does, it's surprising.
This has a hydraulic steering rack, and it actually has steering feel. You can tell what's going on. New tires on this, the control arms, the bushings are bad, and so it's got a little bit of a delay, but it's so predictable. And it's just nice. I can feel here that classic BMW steering that has gone away with their electronic steering racks and is non-existent in my car.
Yeah, it even feels good sitting over here. I know this is an old car. Yeah. It smells burny and hot.
It does.
There's everything wrong with it. The vents just come loose, pieces come off in your hand. But you know, this is well bought. For the price, for what you're getting, I don't know that you need maintenance records. They'd be nice to have.
Yeah.
But if the car runs, you change the oil, and you start looking at the things that you need from a safety standpoint, maybe you'll get up to $8,000 and suddenly you got a great car.
Yeah, I'm continually surprised when driving this at how solid it feels, with the exception of the interior that is pretty rough, and the paint that is rough as well, and that's what's kept the price down. But the mechanics of this, are worth so much more than was paid for, and just proves this point so much. You have to drive this. I'm excited for you to drive it.
I can't wait. Feels tiny. It feels lighter and smaller than
it feels much lighter
all the
than,
numbers would
yes,
suggest.
Absolutely it does. This interior is an interesting mixed bag, besides the fact that it's rough.
Well, it's bird's eye maple applique with some other mysterious wood applique that's coming loose.
That doesn't match, which is a really weird choice.
All right, that's all right. I mean, look, you got a coin.
I've got a coin
Oh,
slot
that's loose.
That becomes, okay.
Oh, everything's loose.
It's all loose.
I'm going to stop grabbing things, except for the door handle. The seating position is very far back in the car, which makes this long nose feel. I think you dubbed it the camel nose. I think that's what this is known as. 20 years later, 22 years later, this is starting to look pretty good.
It's aging well, isn't it?
You see it go by and you think, I forgot Z3s exist.
Yeah.
That's right, those are cool. Styling that people think, nah, it's not gonna look good years from now, suddenly looks good.
Sometimes
years
it comes
from now,
into its
suddenly
own.
it's great. The Z4 has, and now you think, well, both of these are options. And we could have not chosen the Z3, but it did fit within our category. It fit within all of our specs, our requirements that we wanted to do. I'm glad we included it.
I did consider it as an alt to the Z4. This was a strong contender, and it still is. Even really cheap like this, it's a really good contender.
Just make sure you don't touch things.
Just don't touch the stuff that's broken.
Exactly. Listen to that, it even sounds good.
It does.
2.5 liter straight six making 184 horsepower. It moves the car. You can get the bigger engine than this, but this was the lowest engine, the base model engine that you could get for North America.
Yeah, in 01, this was the lowest engine. The other one was the 3 liter that had pretty similar stats, a little over 200 horsepower and torque to my Z4. It sounds good.
Which makes this less of a momentum car, even though it is, and more of a car you've got powered to get up a hill, around a corner.
We've got a 0 to 60 that's now mysteriously under 7 seconds. That hasn't happened before.
Amazing.
That's pretty cool. I like
This
that.
thing moves.
Yep.
I like this car. I like how it shifts. I like the seating position. Now we're starting to get back into that mysterious want factor.
Oh, really? This taps into that for you? Okay.
It does.
Okay.
Because I start to feel the difference in engineering and what German engineers put their efforts into and what they cared about. As old as this is, it still feels weirdly solid. Even though the control arms are shot, it's not just a cruiser. It's not just a cruiser mobile.
No, you could drive this really hard.
It's now just starting to get after it. But the thing with the Z3 was never really accepted in terms of mod your Z3, turn it into a race car. People have.
And there was an M version as well.
There certainly
very
was.
sought after.
But
I
you buy
take
it
your
from
point,
BMW as that car. You just
Yeah.
sort of leave it alone. But it's not like the Miata community where you just throw money in, or the Nissan 350Z community.
Sure, yeah.
Those two just have endless parts available. There's third. It still feels crisp. You can still feel the shifts.
I think that shifter's better than the one in my Z4. I know the steering's better. I think
The
shifter
steering's
might be better too.
Yeah. Throw that in. Yeah, there's so much more feel here. It's interesting just to start to really get into the back-to-back driving, which is
It's
going to
make this decision to cut these down pretty hard.
It really is.
They're all winding up a lot closer than I expected. We're only halfway done, and I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
I'm in trouble.
But we're feeling that German car build again that I love, that solidity. There's cars that are nimble and they dance, but there's this solid gravitas to this car, but it isn't weight, because we felt weight in the Solstice.
Yeah.
It's the way this car moves itself. It holds itself through corners.
It's funny that it doesn't feel as heavy as the Solstice.
Oh,
But it also doesn't feel anything as light as the Miata, but it's the Solstice weight and the Miata thinking.
yep.
It's a weird combo.
But I'm starting to drop into this driving mode. Let's get some work done. It's no longer cruising. Driving it again is revelatory, I feel like.
And the low price aspect makes many of these cars more compelling than they are otherwise. If we were shopping for these at 30 grand, there'd be a lot of things we wouldn't forgive. We're willing to forgive a lot in the pursuit of what does a sports car do, which is give you driving fun and feel. And in spite of the difficult interior here and some of the less than perfect dynamics of some of the others, we're discovering that driving fun is fully available kind of across the board here at affordable prices. And this Z3 is leading the charge because it was bought for so little.
At some point in time, the prior owner decided to tint the front headlights.
Oh, that was a good choice.
That didn't work out too
That
well.
ended up really, really well.
Yeah,
It looks like the lights are
peeling
actually
off.
melting now.
If you do the most basic of maintenance to these cars, just wash your car and the paint won't fade like this is. Don't tint your headlights, just keep it stock. Because when you see a perfectly clean example of anything,
Now that's the unique one.
now that's interesting. You're
Never
right.
seen a stock one.
It's
That's
unique.
weird.
That's pretty cool. Z3 is coming on strong.
Much
As far
better
as
than I would have ever expected,
driving
especially
fun.
considering it's the cheap car
Yes. Just the driving fun alone.
here. Yeah, it's up there.
Pretty impressed. 22 years later, cheap, janky Z3s still going strong. It's kind of exciting.
That smell was not the camper. That smell is Z3.
That's Z3 insulation
It
right
was a good
there.
year. It was a good year for Z3.
was.
2001.
It's interesting, all these convertibles, how we can feel how juddery they are
Yeah.
as far as the structure of the car, but this one seems to shake it off more than the others in a weird way. And I'm not saying it feels more solid than the others, it just sort of shakes off those bumps and resets itself more quickly.
It does recover quick. I agree with that.
Oh yeah, that's so easy now. See, the Miata proportions, it's about this size, but the
It
interior
is.
has far more space,
is.
and I've got space to do heel and towing. It's hard to heel and tow when you don't have a tack. It just makes it a little more adventurous.
It's hard to do a lot of things, like, shifted red line over tack too. Now the fuel
Right.
cutoff works, but you don't want to be banging against that every shift.
You think you know a number and then take your tack away and see how good you are at heel and
Yeah,
towing.
for sure. Well, especially when you jump into 8 cars in one day and they all sound different, feel
No
different.
kidding.
No guessing. We think we have enough fuel too. We're not sure. That doesn't work either.
All that works is the trip gauge and there's a
The
speedometer.
speedometer is moving, but
But
we're not
it's-
sure it's accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, we think it's about 10 miles an hour fast based on GPS, so
I cannot stress enough. $4,800.
it's so well bought. And
This
the air
car's-
conditioning's
this-
cold.
The air conditioning will freeze you out of the car.
Great.
The top leaks a little bit, because of course it does. This has a plastic back window, which
there's
is
that.
just a recipe for disaster. But also the electric part of the top does not work. The latches work,
Right.
but you have to toss it back manually. Currently, neither one of our tops work right on our cheap sports cars, so I can't really say that's a dig against this car.
Right.
Ours were bought
It's just-
for more.
It's
They
just
broke.
equal. It
They
just
broke.
equalizes
Yeah.
things.
Yes.
You have no more fitment issues.
I mean,
in a
I'm-
small car.
I'm closer to the Miata with sticking my head out, but I'm not bad. I can do it, but much better than I could in the Miata.
It's a really entertaining feel not to trust any of your gauges. It's just entertaining.
It's like having a blindfold on the gauges. Like,
It
sure,
really kind of is.
whatever.
So Z3s, old Z3s come with visual flight rules only on
There
this
you go.
one.
Yeah, you got to be VFR only in your
Yeah.
Z3.
See, holds the line. Some precision there.
It's also a public service announcement about the benefit of good tires.
It really is. It's changed it dramatically.
Yeah, come on.
You're gonna start looking for Z3s again. I know you are. They're cool.
They're very cool.
$4,800. They're worth it.
Do you want to get the 3-liter spin a little more? Do you want to go actually seek out one of the M cars, which are frankly too expensive at this
Yeah,
point?
you're gonna
but you
pay
have
for the nose.
degrees of this car that you can pursue. And again, if you want cheap sports car and you don't want a Miata, you can buy a Z3 for cheap Miata numbers and wind up with a cool car.
And you're not driving a Miata.
Yep.
You're driving a BMW back in a German car. Yeah.
For all the German car snobs out there, the doors sound great too. So
Oh,
you
they
can
do
all
sound
that.
great. You're
Yeah.
right. They
I
still
know.
sound good.
It's a whole German thing.
Forgot
It's
about
happening.
that.
Yep.
How are the vents? Have you sampled the vents?
The vents are fine. Kudos to this car for having the vents
Okay.
up away from your knees and actually being able to cool the cabin.
It's because it doesn't have a screen.
That's right.
None of these
Exactly
cars
why not.
do.
Do your own $7,500 or less search. Click the Auto Tempest link in the video description and tell us in the comments what you've come up with.